Professor Mehmet Demiryürek is a prolific author, having published dozens of papers and books on Ottoman Cyprus, including Cyprus and the Ottoman Reforms, Bandits and the State in Cyprus during the British era, and he has recently co-edited the book Studies on Ottoman Nicosia, from Ottoman Conquest to the Early British Period. He is a professor of history at Hittite University in Çorum, Turkey, and he's been so kind to join us today to discuss banditry in 19th century Cyprus. Mehmet, welcome to the History of Cyprus podcast.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you very much for your kind invitation. I hope this program will be useful for your listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, you've researched banditry in Cyprus, most notably publishing The Bandits and the State in Cyprus, 1878 to 1896. What is it about this period or about banditry that drew you to the subject?
I wrote that book about 20 years ago. In those years, I was a new assistant professor, and I would go to the National Archives in Kyrenia for research. I met there a photograph showing Hasan Bulli band. They were handcuffed. I also met there a woman. She worked there, and Hasan Bouliler were her ancestors. According to her, they were heroes and innocent peoples. She also had written a novel and told their story. In addition to this, I read a book, Bandits and State by Sabri Yetkin. Its topic was a famous bandit in Turkey in the early years of 19th century. And later I met Hobsbawm's famous book, The Bandits. They gave me creative thoughts for my research. In 2001, I watched a folk dance about Hasan Bouliler in Nicosia. According to it, they were national heroes. In those years, a new novel was published about them. I mean, Hasan's brothers. According to it, they were not national heroes. They were criminals. A Turkish novelist, late Bekir Kara, also thought that they were criminals. As a result, this topic drew my attention. Everyone talked about them, but there was not serious research about them. So I want to make academic research. The story of Hasan Bouliler began for me like this. First, I translated Karaklak's books, The Criminal Activities of Hasan Folia, into Turkish in 2003. Later, I did my research. I used the court records, Turkish newspapers, and the Cyprus Gazette by the government in my research. My chance was that the manager of National Archives supported to me and opened all doors. All files were there, but dusty and unclassified. It took my long time to find them. I opened those files firstly after they were closed.
How do we define bandits? I mean, what distinguishes banditry from common criminal activities, or is there a difference?
Anyone belonging to a group of men who attack and rob with violence is a bandit. I think the teller of their stories or writers who published books about them describes them as criminals or bandits. I think bandit is more acceptable word than criminal, according to the public opinion. For the law, there is no difference between them. But for the public opinion, they were different persons. Bandits were brave not only during their activities, but also while they were prisoners. They were speedy like birds. they are not afraid of dying. So they affect the public opinion. The people are afraid of them and respect them at the same time, I think.
So, what were the typical crimes of the period in 19th century Cyprus? And similarly, what were the typical punishments for the period?
The typical crimes of the period in 19th century Cyprus were theft, homicide, house burning, rape, and robbery. Robbery. To stab a man was a common case. Everybody, including children, were carrying knife. According to the Turkish Cypriot press, the bandits were the following. First, if the crime was committed by a band. Second, if they demanded the rich persons to give them money, lead, or gunpowder. According to Kareklas, it was easy to find a man for someone who wanted to kill his enemy. If the victim was a wealthy man or a famous criminal, its price was 20 Cyprus liras. But the victim was a poor man, its price was only 5 Cyprus liras. According to a report, in the first 18 months of the British rule in Cyprus, there 3 men were hanged for their crimes. The knife and firearm were used by the criminals. From 1885 to 1886, about 4,000 crimes were informed to the police. 10 years later, this number was about 7,000. In 1892, Paphos district was the worst crime region of the island. In the same year, the Cyprus governor said that the criminal cases in Limassol and Paphos districts were growing. According to a newspaper in 1892, to live in Paphos was very risky. The main punishments were death penalty, imprisonment, long or short, and hard labor.
Who enforced the law?
In the last years of the 19th century, the outlaws were responsible for the homeland security in Cyprus. The commanders and zaptiers were generally Turkish Cypriots. According to the Turkish press, their numbers were not enough.
So, what was it like researching this period for you? Can you tell listeners about the sources when talking about banditry?
Yes.
You know, did you look at newspapers, court records?
There are a lot of sources about this period. A researcher can find Turkish Cypriot newspapers, but I think he can read the Ottoman writings because the Turkish Cypriot newspapers in that time was published old Turkish. And a researcher can find also Greek Cypriot newspapers, the Cyprus Gazette and court records. The most important court records archives is in Kyrenia. In addition, official publications can be found. Cyprus Blue Book.
You even had to translate the oral history written
Yeah.
by Commander Gariklas from Paphos. Who was Gariklas and how valuable was his work to understanding our events?
This report is very important for this topic. In 1937, Gariklas was a police commander in Paphos. According to him, the police chief commander asked him to search and write the murderers named Hasan Bulliler. He completed his research about 1 year. This report was published in 1938. In fact, the main source for the subsequent writings about Hasan Bulliler depend on this report. His report was an oral history. Until my research, no one did make research in the archives and use the court records. Yes.
So what do we know about Hasan Bouliler and his siblings?
Bulli, in Turkish Bulli or Poli family, lived in Mamonya village in the Paphos district. According to a census register, this was Ahmet Bulli's family. His full name was farm laborer Ahmet Poli or Ahmet Bulli, son of Süleyman. Ahmet Bulli had 4 children. First, Hasan Ahmet, you know then, Hasan Bulli. Hasan Ahmet, he was 24 years old when he was a fugitive. Mehmet Ahmet Kaymakam was his nickname. Fourth, Hüseyin Kavuni. He was born in 1874. He was 21 years old when he was a criminal. Kavuni was his nickname because his face looked like a melon. 3 sons of Ahmet Bulli were died during this period, but his daughter lived a long time and he had grandsons. So his family went on.
I was surprised to learn that Bouliler is a nickname. What does that nickname mean?
Bulli, in Turkish or Poli, bird, or in Cyprus, chicken. In fact, it seems that Poli or Bulli was their family nickname. Their father, Ahmet's nickname was Bulli. The reason of this nickname is unknown, as I know. But this nickname won famous during their activities, especially Hasan's brothers' activities, because according to Chapura, a Greek poet, they were swift and speedy. They lived more than 1 year as fugitive, and they achieved to escape from the police in a small island.
When do we first hear of Hasan's activities, and what was he accused of exactly, and by whom?
According to the legend and court records, while Hasan was a fugitive, there was not any Turkish newspaper. So we owe our all information about him to Chapura, a poet, especially his personal features. When we read the court records, we learn that Hasan was accused of stealing Hayreddin's ships in October of 1887.
And who was Hayreddin?
Hayreddin was a villager and shepherd. He lived in Fasula village. Fasula was one of the neighbor villages of Mamonya village. Hayreddin, one day, Hayreddin went to the police and claimed that Hasan and his friends tried to steal his ships.
There are also claims that Hassan and Hayreddin were in love with the same woman. Is there any truth to this?
According to him, Kareklas, Hasan was fall in love a woman named Emete. Hayreddin made an unacceptable offer to Emete. Emete told it Hasan and they became enemy. Hasan tried 3 times to kill Hayreddin, but he failed. At last, Hayreddin went to the police and claimed that theft. If you want to believe Kareklas, the love story was real. On the other hand, love is a strong feeling, so it could be, but to prove it is impossible, I think.
Mhm. Did Hassan go to prison? Did he escape?
Hasan did not go to prison. While he was being taken to prison, he escaped. He became a fugitive. According to Kareklas, he was a good fugitive. He was kind and helpful, especially for the women in the countryside.
Now, we learned, though, that his brothers, Mehmet and Hüseyin, were involved in criminal activities, including rape, murder, and even the establishment of a band of thieves.
Yes.
What sort of criminal activities were they involved in? Because I read that they murdered 14 people, and I just wonder, what were their motives? Was it simply wealth, for example?
Yes, Hassan's brothers, I think, were real criminals. In the beginning, I mean in January 1895, Hüseyin Kavuni, stabbed a Greek Cypriot during a fight. He, Andreas Temiktoklis, died later. This was the beginning. They killed Hasan Efendi because they believed that Hasan Efendi was a police spy. They also were supported by Vasfi Ahmet. He was a rich man. Hasan Efendi was also Vasfi Ahmet's enemy. In March 1895, they killed Hayreddin. You know Hayreddin. He was Hasan's enemy. And the crimes went on. In June 1895, they killed Nikolaki Papakyriakou because Nikola was a witness of the first killing in January 1895. Until July of 1895, they killed at least 4 people. Kareklas claimed that they were killed 12 people during their criminal activities.
And what happened to the women who were unfortunately victims of the bandits?
Yes, in fact, it is very interesting. They were abducted, some Turkish Cypriot women and Greek Cypriot women. Aliye, Feride, Pembe, and Varvaru. 3 of them were Muslims. Mehmet Prastites was fall in love Aliye, but Aliye was married another man. So Mehmet Prastites joined to the bullies and they captured Aliya. All women were raped by them. Their last attempt to abduct was unsuccessful. They decided to abduct a Greek Cypriot girl. Hacı Perikli, a Greek Cypriot, was their enemy, and he had a young girl. The band believed that Hacı Perikli helped to the police, so they decided to abduct his young girl. But Hacı Perikli learned their intention and left his village. So they went to Perikli's house, but found nobody, and they burned his house.
Why weren't they given up by the locals? Like, were they supported or were they simply feared?
Supported them. It's very interesting. I think they coveted them, but they were not brave like them. Sometimes the local wealthy men used them to kill their enemies.
How did the Cypriot government respond to their criminal activities? Now, what sort of measures were taken? What was their fate?
Cyprus government took different measures, such as, in fact, two important measures. The first, the Cyprus Legislative Council made an extraordinary meeting in October 1895. Ordinary meeting was in March in every year. The Legislative Council made a new law about the band, and they were proclaimed outlaws. According to the law, the man who was proclaimed an outlaw, all his properties could be confiscated by the government if he did not surrender. The time limit was days after the law. The police would be taken hard measures, including killing them. If the man or if a man helped or supported an outlaw, would be arrested by the government. The second important measures was reward. The government also declared a reward, a certain reward of 100 Cyprus liras. This was the highest reward until that date. So the government, I think, want to capture them immediately.
And they were betrayed by someone named Talha. Do we know who this was?
Yes, they were betrayed by Talha. In fact, Talha was also a criminal and their friend. He could be intimidated by the new law, I think. There was also a reward. As a result, he informed Captain Mustafa Şevki Efendi. Şevki Efendi was looking for outlaws everywhere. They slept in Rebia's house. They tried and drank. Talha met Captain Mustafa Şevki Efendi. The house was beset by the Zaptiye. The outlaws did not accept the surrender offer. After the armed conflict, Hüseyin Kavuni was killed. The other surrendered. The reward was shared. Talha took 60 liras, Kamil took 20 liras, and Ismail Hassan took 20 liras. Yes.
Were they hanged,
Andreas?
the rest of them?
Hüseyin Kavuni was killed during the fight. Only Mehmet Kaymakam and Hüsnü Salih were hanged. Others were sentenced lifelong prison. After Hüseyin Kavuni was killed by the police and Mehmet Kaymakam hanged, Hasan escaped from the prison for revenge. But Hasan did not achieve this. Hasan was a kind man in the prison. When he was in prison, Kareklas was also a store officer in that prison. Kareklas knew Hasan. While he was escaping, Hasan was shot and killed. According to Kareklas, Hasan was a kind and helpful man. Hasan helped the woman when he met them during his fugitive.
Many viewed them, as you mentioned earlier, they viewed them as heroes who resisted British occupation. You disagree with this interpretation and claim that they were simply bandits. Well, at least his brothers, at least Hasan's brothers. What's your interpretation? Why do you feel that they weren't heroes?
I think Hasan was a fugitive, not a bandit. He did not kill anyone during his fugitiveness. According to Kareklas, who knew him, in fact, Hasan was innocent when Hayreddin accused of him. In addition, we have no detailed independent sources about him, like newspapers. But I think his brothers were real criminal or bandits. They made a lot of killings. They abducted women and raped them. They organized a band. Their victims were both Turkish Cypriots or Muslims and Greek Cypriots or Christians, not the British. They were simply bandits.
So where does the idea come that they were outlaws, akin to Jesse James? Can you tell us about some of the poems or songs that were written about them?
Yes, I think the poems or songs about them, which were written, published, and read in that time, I discovered about them. First, there is one song, a Greek Cypriot poet, about Hasan Bulli, was published in 1892, before Hasan's brothers were not outlaws. He complimented Hasan about his activities. According to him, he was a hero. He helped everyone during his fugitive. Nobody was killed by him. He was honest. He complimented Hasan and his activities. Second, Chapuras, Hasan's brothers, were arrested. Third, in 1896, Kyriako Papadopoulos also published a song about them, Hasan's brothers, and only told the story of Hasan Bulli band, Mehmet Kaymakam, Hüseyin Kavuni, and their friends. Fourth, Kyriako Papadopoulos and Konstantin Philippou also published another song in 1896. This time, they told the story of Hasan. They told when, how, and why he escaped from the prison. Fifth, one Turkish poet, Hafız Cemalettin, also wrote a song about Hasan Bulliler, Cyprus bandits under the British rule. Hafız Cemalettin was a young journalist and he watched all hearings. I mean, the trials of Hasan's brother, Mehmet Kaymakam, and the other members of the band. As a result, Hafız Cemalettin wrote his song and published in Nicosia in February 1897. In 2001, Bekir Kara, a Turkish Cypriot novelist, published a novel named Kavuni. He told the stories of Hüseyin Kavuni, Mehmet Kaymakam, and their band. Described them as a simple bandits, not national heroes. As for Hasan's brothers, they were criminals. For example, Çapura described Hüseyin Kavuni as a snake. In addition, according to him, they were not heroes. When they abducted a Turkish Cypriot girl, Çapura did not criticize them, but when they abducted a Greek Cypriot girl, Çapura clearly criticized them. This was a disaster for the Greeks, he said.
So ultimately, what is your interpretation of Hasan Bouliler and his brothers? So many songs and novels and even plays have been written about them. What is their place in Cypriot imagination and history?
My opinion is that Hasan could be innocent, but his brothers were brutal bandits, not national heroes. However, their imagination changed for different writers. I think it will continue these different opinions. The people will go on to say what they believe, not the historical documents. The point is that they were an important part of Cyprus' social history, and they will remember a hero or bandit or criminal in the future. Historians, searchers, and maybe filmmakers will write about them, their own stories.
Mehmet, I just want to again thank you so much for accepting the invitation, and it was really enlightening.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Bye now. Bye.